The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for Nuverra leverages FieldFX with Data Gumbo's blockchain to remove the invoice from the quote to cash process. My name is Emily Rhodes. I'm the Director of Marketing at Liquid Frameworks, and I will be acting as the moderator today. First, let's start with some housekeeping notes. We've muted the phone lines today to avoid any interruptions during the presentation. We will, however, allow time for a short question and answer session at the end of the presentation. So if you have a question, please enter it in the chat section on the right-hand side of the screen, and we will answer it at the close of the presentation. If we don't have time for all of the questions, we'll be sure to follow up with you personally after the webinar. So next, I'd like to introduce our speakers. Joining us today, we have Greg Tipton, Vice President and CIO at Nuverra Environmental Solutions, William Fox, Chief Product Officer at Data Gumbo, and Bob Swanson, Senior Solutions Engineer at Liquid Frameworks. So today we are here to talk about automation. Nuverra is going to show how they leverage both FieldFX and Data Gumbo's blockchain-backed network, GumboNet, to fully automate their quote-to-cash process. So let's dive right in, and I'm going to turn things over to William.
Great, thank you, Emily. So the goal is reducing the time between service delivery and payment. We approach this in two ways, reducing disputes and reducing the number of steps involved in generating a payment. Both of these contribute to reducing the overall time. At the top of this diagram, we show a traditional manual paper-based approach to field service ticketing and invoicing. Typically, this process involves a driver or an operator in the field performing a service, chasing down a company man or a superintendent to sign a ticket, which then accumulates at his windshield for a day or two before making it to the vendor's office. Once there, the individual tickets pile up until the end of the month when a pro forma invoice is created and sent to the operator, where it's typically kicked back and forth at least once before the vendor then submits it to a portal or other B2B system. The invoice makes it to the customer's ERP, where it is subject to additional opportunities for reconciliation errors. Finally, once all the issues have been corrected, the payment waits for payment terms before executing. The second row here represents the same process in a fully digital and collaborative online ticketing system. Using a collaborative system removes or shortens several of the steps and makes the whole process digital, but crucially, it does not remove the 3 points of potential dispute. Effectively, it has digitized a bad process. The third line down represents the pilot we did with the OSC Blockchain Consortium, Nuverra, and FieldFX, which was a material change in the process. The volume data from the well pad was captured automatically, and the trucker submitted digital field tickets. These were reconciled daily instead of monthly or biweekly, and all the tickets within a specific tolerance were approved for payment. Those individual charges were rolled up into invoices, and our SAP client then automated the posting of the invoice directly into an SAP sandbox for the operator. So potentially this solution could reduce days sales outstanding from 90 or 120 to 31, subject to the payment terms. Finally, the bottom line represents a situation where the operator and trucker have decided to do daily reconciliation and invoicing with the ACH payments automated out of an escrow account. We're talking to several operators today who are discussing just this case. So how does this actually work? Simply put, the blockchain is an immutable accounting ledger that is transparent to all parties involved. Each participant receives the same exact copy of each data entry. In the event that an entry is modified, participants will be notified. The mechanism for this is called a hash, which reads each data block and creates a unique fingerprint. Each new block contains a reference to the previous fingerprint, which creates a chain of blocks. Any alteration of the data in a block changes its fingerprint, invalidating all later blocks and becoming immediately visible to the other participants. In this way, we can guarantee that both sides have the exact same records. Through the use of client software, this data can also be published to existing general ledger systems such as SAP or Oracle. Also, the Data Gumbo system is private, it's permissioned, does not include any tokens or cryptocurrencies. Clearly, nobody is going to pay each other in Gumbo bucks. So what is a smart contract? Smart contracts are really just dumb scripts. They do not replace master service agreements or other legal contracts. Rather, they automate the execution of those contracts. Data Gumbo provides a platform for companies to create and manage smart contracts with their customers and suppliers. This allows both sides to share some of their data, creating an immutable and shared record for each transaction. Smart contracts can be tuned to automate as much as 90% of transactions, freeing personnel up to manage by exception rather than simply sort of clicking through their invoicing workflow as quickly as possible. In general, the information flow is from left to right on this diagram. So on the left, companies collect data in the field, such as sensor readings, field tickets, daily reports or logs. The GumboNet system collects only the data relevant and required for contract execution. So it's a specific data solution, not a big data solution. The smart contract runs in the cloud and it creates blocks as individual billable events occur. And the blocks are then published to each participant in the ledger. Each participant only has the keys to see the contents of the blocks that they were a party to. So an operator might see all the blocks on a particular ledger, but the different contractors and service providers would only see their own. Finally, the system can publish those results to financial systems of record for payment. So now I'll hand over to Greg.
Thank you, William. Hello, everyone. My name is Greg Tipton, and I'm the Chief Information Officer here at Nuverra Environmental Solutions. Nuverra is a leading provider in water logistics and oil field services to customers focused on the development of ongoing production of oil and natural gas from shale formations in the United States. I've been asked to talk a little bit about the value of FieldFX and Data Gumbo, but I think by walking you through how we currently use these applications will give you a better understanding on how all of this comes together in the value. This slide provides a high-level overview, and I'm going to go from left to right on the slide, similar to the previous slide. To get everything started, a feed from the customer SCADA system has to be sent to Data Gumbo. Since this is used to identify the event and the amount of water hauled, the day usually starts off at Nuverra, where a dispatcher takes information from an internal gauge tool that also consumes our customer SCADA information. The past trucking tickets and the SCADA information helps the gauge tool calculate how much water is available at the site to be hauled. The dispatcher then builds the driver's day with this information within FieldFX. When the driver starts a ticket on his tablet, he enters a ticket start time. I also want to mention here that Nuverra has modified FieldFX to allow for additional times to be used for this all to work correctly. When the driver arrives at the well site, he enters the time he arrives into FieldFX. This will allow Data Gumbo the ability to watch for the event in SCADA. The driver will also enter the top gauge, bottom gauge, and barrels pulled. The driver then enters the time he leaves the site. He performs the same stop and start time at the disposal. These values are also useful to dispatch so that they know how long a truck's been waiting at a disposal and can reroute trucks later if necessary. Once a ticket is completed in FieldFX, our integration server, many of you might be familiar with Boomi or Jitterbit, pushes specific fields to Data Gumbo to be compared with the smart contract. How this works is Data Gumbo takes the SCADA information during the times identified on the hauling ticket and the disposal ticket to verify barrels pulled. If this matches, then the hauling and disposal tickets are auto-approved. At this point, tickets are assigned an invoice number that are fed back into FieldFX and eventually into our ERP for invoicing. We are currently working on a project to push invoices directly to a customer ERP and interfacing with our ERP to recognize revenue from an auto-approved ticket. Tickets that are not within the set tolerance of the smart contract need to be reviewed and corrected. Now let's talk a little bit about the value. Over the past 8 months, we have been using Data Gumbo with 5 customer wells and 6 saltwater disposals. We pushed approximately 197,000 barrels through Data Gumbo. We were able to obtain a 2-way match on 954 tickets and a 3-way match on 249 tickets, totaling 1,203 tickets, or 90% of our tickets being auto-approved. Reducing our DSO, our days sales outstanding, has become a key in our current environment. Every one of our customers have unique requirements that drives our DSO. In my experience, the oil field seems to be a very paper-driven environment, and I mean that literally. We have a team of folks that spend much of their time driving tickets around to have them signed and sent back to our billing office to be invoiced. The process is very labor and time intensive. While FieldFX has done wonders streamlining our internal paper process to get invoices out faster, our process still includes many steps that include printing, signing, and scanning paper. If Nuverra's customers were to move to Data Gumbo or similar technology, we would only have to look at exceptions, freeing up a very labor and time-intensive process. While I do not have the savings calculation for the hauler side, the project sponsor for this estimated a savings from reductions at 25% of total contract cost on their end. And so I think that's it for my slides. I'm going to now turn this over to Bob Swanson from Liquid Frameworks, who's going to do a demo.
Thank you, Greg. As noted, my name is Bob Swanson, and I'm a Senior Solutions Engineer for Liquid Frameworks. And we're hearing about how technologies like blockchain can assist in optimizing business processes to address problems like day sales outstanding by cutting time out of the process. But as noted, to get the efficiencies out of these technologies, we need to move away from paper. And in today's example, specifically paper-based ticketing. Having the data available as data is the first step. For those new to Liquid Frameworks, our FieldFX product suite is a complete mobile field operations management solution, providing companies in the oil field, industrial, and environmental services industries with the ability to organize and manage jobs, quotes, field ticketing, equipment, contracts, price books, and labor, along with customer-specific electronic forms like safety incident forms, inspections, other operational data reports. The FieldFX e-ticketing module that we're going to see today streamlines the ticketing process from operations to field personnel. And moving to the FX e-ticketing allows you to quickly and efficiently gather data in the field. And we'll start out today with a sample screen here in the back office where FieldFX allows us to do a lot of things. But for today, we're going to keep things simple, and I'm doing the job as a dispatcher. And I can take my job here. We're working with a company called OOC, and we're going to do some water hauling for them. I've got job details. I can plan out who I want on the crew for this, the equipment that's needed for it, like the haul truck. I can do tickets for it, all of that within simple e-ticketing. If I want to, I can also expand that a little bit and take that job into a module called Schedule and Dispatch. Here, I can see that same information in a graphical interface, allowing that scheduler there at Nuverra to see all of the different jobs that are in process right now, all of the people that are available on the crew, all of the different pieces of equipment that are available to schedule, to see any anything that's double booked or available based on different criteria that you can give right to the system to build these jobs for you. So I dispatched this job out to the field, and let's go see what the driver sees on his side. Okay. You'll see that I switched interfaces. I'm now working as the driver in the field, and here we use a mobile version of the FieldFX e-ticketing interface created to work offline. The information syncs down to the device so I can do my job out where there's no connections. The FieldFX controls what is synchronized based on my profile and the assigned work, so the user doesn't have to worry about what to bring down. Here in this screen, right, I can see the jobs that are assigned to me, right? And for that job, I can see the information or the subset of the information, right, that's been provided for me. And I can go into my ticket for that job. I could go directly into the ticket without going through the job. But in that ticket, right, tells me the location of the site where I'm going to be picking up, and also the appropriate Nuverra saltwater disposal site to deliver the the barrels too. So I'm got an origin, I've got a destination, and as I fill up the truck at this side, I can begin to detail out this ticket, right, to more information. For instance, I can click on geolocation, right? This will pull my location from the GPS device in this device I've got here, whether it's a laptop installed on this truck or maybe it's a tablet that's been provided to me. But that's confirmation that I've come to the site that was contracted for this pickup. I can also, as Greg alluded to, enter the top gauge reading, right, bottom gauge reading. And that's part of the match that'll occur in the background when the information is confirmed, how much I've picked up for this job, with the cross-reference to the IoT and the sensor information from Data Gumbo. I can also enter a start date. I want to use today, time, right now. And that's another part of the cross-reference. See, as Greg alluded to, we can split this time into various groupings, wait time, travel time, filling time, et cetera. And that information gets also uploaded, right? And I can finish filling up my truck and head off over to Nuverra's saltwater site. Now, as a driver, I can get to the end of my journey and deliver that water to the disposal facility. And I complete my ticket by entering the time and date that I finished this job. I can use the extensible system, like Greg said, for Nuverra to add start and stop times, also at the destination. Times such as waiting time, time to fill, all get accounted for. These fields, like the starting and ending times, locations, gauge readings, will be picked up by the Data Gumbo integration you'll see in a moment. And this information can be used to complete the invoice. But it can also be used for other information once it's available electronically. For instance, if I'm also tracking mileage, right? And I know that I went 120 miles on this job. That information is now available to things like FX EAM, an enterprise asset management module from Liquid Frameworks that can enhance your physical asset management, providing processes and intelligence to allow you to increase equipment availability, systematic preventive and predictive maintenance, and efficient inventory of all things. And as will be noted almost everywhere, not all companies will adopt technology at the same rate. For the customers covered by these smart contracts, that's really all I need. Others may still want signable forms or reports and tickets, and maybe make it available in a customer self-service portal. And FieldFX can do all of that for you and much more, right? So now my information is complete. I've got it all out there available. I can flag this as completed, right? So that's ready for approval. And I can, when I return to home base or my stop for the day that has some internet connectivity, we see now that some of those changes are now available, and I can upload that very quickly. And that data then becomes available in the cloud for Data Gumbo to process. And the information is also available to any other process that can get value from what is now digital information instead of paper tickets. And we're going to go over now to William to show where this data goes now in its journey over to Data Gumbo. All right, William, you are now the presenter.
Great, thanks. Okay, so as Bob said, over to the GumboNet side, the way that we approach this is to have a series of templatized contracts, smart contracts between the various counterparties. In this case, Produce Water Haulage as an example, and these are contracts that are reusable templates that both sides can use to negotiate whatever configurable values they need to pull out for the particular contract. In this case, for water haulage, we had some standard data about the contract that we need to know, such as who the counterparty is going to be, the validity dates, the locations, and so on, what facilities are covered. And then in this case, they broke out the the charges according to a series of geographical areas. And then they have the opportunity to go and put additional fees and surcharges and so on there. And they determined that there was one facility that was going to provide SCADA data, one saltwater disposal that was provide SCADA data that would allow for a three-way match. So all that is set up in here. And then the parties have an opportunity to upload the copy of the legal contract as a PDF. So that ties the code that's going to execute the contract to the legal contract that already existed. Both sides have an opportunity to audit the code if they desire to do so and confirm that all the variables are correct. And then they will go and execute an e-signature, which is what sets the contract into active status. Over on the sort of blockchain ledger side, the companies can set up as many ledgers as they need to execute the use case. In this case, we have one for water haulage. The contracts, each copy of the contract runs on one of these ledgers. So you can see in this case here, we broke out individual daily charges and invoices as separate contracts that reference each other. And then as those events happen, those individual loads like Bob just showed come in, and we compare them to the SCADA data from the field, individual blocks are then generated for each one of those billable events. And you can see that some of them come through with no issues whatsoever, they're ready to go. Others are flagged by the system for a variety of reasons. So in this trial, the variability that was allowed, the allowed tolerance was 1.6%. So you can see that this particular load was flagged because the actual tolerance was 6.7%. And there's all sorts of other things that you can configure there. For instance, lack of data or data out of scope or a sensor being off and so on. But nobody really likes this view. This is much more of a sort of accounting view for later audit. So we also put in place a basic use case specific screen here, more focused on water haulage in particular, where the pads that were covered by the pilot were represented in here with some information about that, how many trips, last trip, and then tank levels for each of the tanks, which we were getting every 8 minutes. And then the blocks were pulled in here as individual trips with some more useful information. So the trip ID, the from, to, the volumes, and so on. And this allows people to see, less of the sausage being made and more of the information necessary to gauge whether the system is working properly. So in this case, for instance, 150 barrels was reported by the truck, and the sensors at the well read 149.97. So that's a good match. That went straight through. And I will then hand it back to Emily.
Yeah, thanks, William. Thanks, everybody, for that great presentation. We are now going to take questions. So just as a reminder, you can enter a question in the chat section on the right-hand side of the screen, and we will do our best to answer them. I do have a few in here. How long did it take to implement? Greg, you want to take that?
Sure, that's a good question. Our FieldFX project, we actually started in 2018, and we started right at the beginning of 2018. We went live on January 1st of 2019. That included workflows, price book, ticket layouts, screen layouts, training, etc. And we've been using FieldFX ever since. Because we had the foundation and built already, implementing data Gumbo was pretty much just an integration request. And we were actually able to stand it up pretty quick. It took us a few weeks to work out a few of the kinks, but our, Nuverra already had the infrastructure to push data pretty much wherever we need to. And so I know this is a high-level answer, and I probably need much more time to go into detail about it, but that's roughly how long it took to implement each of the two apps.
All right, thank you. So another question, what was your biggest challenge or surprise?
That's actually a tough question. There's a lot of pieces in all of this. one of the big surprises was smart contracts and learning how the code behind the scene works and working out some of the logistics with the customer. I mean, all of our customers have different requirements, and each one would have to be agreed to in the smart contract. The good news is we all seem to have the same goal. You know, we only really want to review ticket exceptions. If the ticket passes a certain criteria, we don't necessarily want to see that. For the IT folks, the IT infrastructure folks that are on the phone call, if you've right-sized your circuits for a paper process, then some of your time will be spent right-sizing them again for FieldFX and Data Gumbo, especially in your billing and dispatch offices. We went through and did some of that as well. And then probably the last thing that was a surprise is the amount of time and training you need to spend with everyone. You know, we went back multiple times, followed up with folks multiple times. I think it helps them with change. I mean, it's a big change to folks that are used to paper, not having something physical to touch. So it's quite the eye opener.
Okay. What integration technology does Nuverra use to pass data from FieldFX to Data Gumbo?
That's a good question too. Nuverra uses an in-house solution, which includes IronMQ. As changes happen in these apps that we're connected to microservices that we've written, pick up queued data from IronMQ to make updates to the appropriate applications. You have other integration options out there like Boomi and Jitterbit. They all offer professional services to help you get started. And some of the sample integrations that we've done, and again, maybe some of the simplest ones is Data Gumbo, OpenTicket. We've actually got integrations into third-party applications that our customers have asked us to integrate into. We've integrated an Open Invoice and OilDex. So that's some of the big ones that we've integrated into.
Okay, a few more here. What does the customer adoption look like?
Right now, we've got one customer that we've been working very closely with Data Gumbo. We have other customers that are using OpenTicket. We have other customers that are using, you know, a third-party app. It could be an application that they've purchased that they would just like to integrate with, you know, for us to push tickets to. But it seems like all of our customers are going down this route of looking for ways to improve this process. And some of it is automated and some of it's not. I mean, when you look at OpenTicket's really just an approval mechanism, but it's all digital. There's no more papers going out for signature. What's nice about Data Gumbo is the fact that it's all automated. I mean, we're really only reviewing a handful of tickets each day.
Well, and this question kind of plays to that. What is the process to handle errors, i.e. mismatch in volumes?
So the process that we're using, and so this is going to be different for everyone. Our workflow is set up where as things get approved and disputed inside Data Gumbo, they come back into different queues inside FieldFX in a different status. So if it's approved, it comes back into an approved status, which goes into our ERP. If it's disputed, it comes into a disputed status, and we know that we have to go out there and do something. We have to call the customer and figure out, you know, what's didn't match or what was broke. And that's how we currently use it today in FieldFX. Yeah, so it's very simplistic.
Yeah, that's a great point. And in the sort of next iteration that we're working on now with the customer, we're adding additional methods of dispute resolution, some of which can be unilateral. So for instance, we had some tickets that did not match because the operator meter was down or misconfigured. And so one route would be for one side to resubmit their own data. So for instance, resubmit a change ticket and run it, or resubmit missing time sequence data from the pads. And then we're also working on another route, which would be to effectively do credit rebill in the system. And then finally, negotiate an adjustment to volume, price, or whatever the other measures are to resolve a dispute also in system, which then creates a new record, so it's still auditable in system without having to go back to other source systems. So those are the things we're working on implementing as we speak.
Okay, a few more questions here. Lots of questions. That's great. What type of connectivity do you use with the meters?
Yes, so the operator in question had a SCADA system. I believe their vendor is Signet. And so they had I believe it was a 4G or LTE cell connection back to a series of central repeaters. And then from there, they were able to push it to the cloud.
Okay. The owner reported 25%-ish savings. So for the service providers, other than faster payments, what are the biggest benefits for the supply chain partners underneath the owner?
I guess I can take a swipe at that. So I think reducing day sales outstanding working capital is certainly a primary benefit. I think the other benefit that is coming clearer is that if these are being reconciled either as they come in or let's say on a daily basis, that provides the opportunity to do effectively real-time accruals, which finance folks like a lot. So instead of having to sort of guesstimate where we are mid-month, we have a very fine-grained understanding of what is already approved and reconciled and can be recognized. So that's also a benefit that goes to both sides, not just to the operator.
Okay, well, thank you to everyone who's taken the time to watch with us today. Thank you to our presenters. We have been recording this and we'll send out the recording to everyone who registered. And hope you have a great day. Thanks for joining us today.